I'd like to call this meeting to order of the town of Woodstock Select Board meeting, March 24th, 2025 at 6 o'clock. Additions and deletions.
I would add making Stephanie Apfel the zoning administrative officer.
Okay. And then I would like to add discussing and voting on the follow baskets.
Okay.
Citizens' comments.
Not seeing any
I don't see
online.
any. No, okay. Managers report.
I'll be brief because we have a very large agenda tonight. The only real update I want to give is we're going to be closing town hall early Thursday. We have a staff outing at Raimundo's. It's been a long winter for everyone. Right, close town hall around 3:15, 3:30 on Thursday. Take the staff out for a few pizzas.
Okay. Public hearing at Keystone Block. Just, do I just say what your name and?
Erstig, the resident of Keystone Block.
Okay,
I'm here to let the town know that I've been working with the town. You know, the citizens know that I've requested to apply for a Vermont Community Development Program planning grant. This grant is for planning only, and it's for the transformation of 3 to 5 Elm Street and 6 Central Street. Okay, it's to create and revitalize the corner block there, and I'm putting in a grant application on 4/8/25 through the town. I will be a subject of the town. So the town will manage the grant and the application. I will be the one that does most of the work to get it into shape to submit. And the town will be able to review and see what it's about. The goal of the grant and the planning grant is to get an engineering report, an environmental assessment, and a historical assessment. And I have procured vendors for those that are price point positive for the grant application. And they're all local firms. And I try to stay local with everything. And the goal of this grant, so that everybody knows, is only for the planning to see what is available and what the potential of restoring this building would be. It does not include anything other than that. It's planning that anybody would do as a corporation or as a homeowner. The homeowner would do a home inspection, which is a business is a building home inspection for a commercial space. If it comes out fruitful, the goal would be to sit there and acquire the building. If those assessments kind of good, and look for funding through banks, investors, and the community here to help develop that grant, and develop the property, and also apply for future grants with the state and federal government.
Okay.
And I want to keep it up to anybody who had any questions.
Yeah, and Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the grants, we have to have a public meeting. So this is a meeting for the public to, either ask questions or express their agreement with the grant or their disagreement with the grant. And so the select board can hear what the public has to say.
okay. Well, any board members have any questions? No. Okay. Anyone have any questions?
And or express your support or lack of support for this project.
Okay.
Yep.
Jeffrey Kahn, village trustee, and Todd came and spoke to us at our last meeting. And the trustees are in full support of this. We think that building, we remember, some of us, when it was in good shape. And it's such a beautiful part of our village, and, it has fallen into such terrible shape. And if this would lead to the purchase of the building by people who are interested in rehabilitating it without using taxpayer money, I'm all for it, and the rest of the trustees were as well, and we're offering a letter of support for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Joe, come on up.
Joe the Italian, owns and operates Mongrel Cafe. My feeling about this is that if that building was restored to its potential, it would have nothing but a positive effect on the whole commercial district. I think everybody, every business in town would benefit from the restoration of that building. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. So. That's it.
Thanks for hearing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Stephanie, anything else we need to do?
No, I'll submit the minutes and all that stuff we need for the grant. That's all we needed.
thanks. Okay, this is Susan's baby.
Yeah.
We have, liquor licenses for South Woodstock Community Partnership, FM Gillingham's, and those two.
I would move that we approve the licenses based upon the assumption that the state reviews the application since they no longer give us the material that allows us to do so.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Conditional vote on the Bites contract for the WoodstockBT.com.
So I think Greta's on here. Eric, if you don't mind enabling screen sharing so Greta can share her screen.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to be brief here. It's going to be a repeat of the presentation of our recommendation for this firm that we showed at the last EDC meeting, which was roughly a month ago, I believe. So here we go, share. Okay. So just three brief, let's see here, there we go. Three brief slides here to kind of help you understand our process a little bit better. When we set out to do this, this has been about a year in the making or more so. We've been talking about, needing to make updates for the website for a very long time. And about a year ago when we were hiring for a new or a contract for this year's marketing coordinator, both firms who applied and provided presentations really recommended this as a growth opportunity. Both firms said it's time to change over the website for many reasons. And so the objectives for us for this process are listed here. I won't read through it, but it's basically just to have a website that's easier to use for the people who are visiting the website. It's easier to use for the admins on our end, and it will be more engaging, easier to access, and people will likely spend more time on the site. So those are the big takeaways there. And then to better understand as a marketing committee what we were looking for after we put out the request for proposal that was released out into the world in December, early December, or maybe late November, actually. And then we took submissions until the middle of January, and we ended up with 6 really great proposals. It was exciting to see. There were a couple local firms and then a few from afar. But the top 5 pieces here and the criteria for evaluating the proposals come directly from our request for proposal. So those, again, I won't directly read to you, but we were just really hoping that to to do a lot of what we weren't really sure as a marketing group exactly what the industry standards were, and we were excited for those professionals to come back and kind of make their recommendations. And so we kind of left a lot of it open. And then at the bottom here, we wanted to also share as the process went forward and we were really evaluating the proposals, some of the things that came up. And so as you see here, overall responsiveness to our RFP was important. A lot of these firms really paid a lot of attention to the details we put in there and were really responsive to that, which was appreciated. And costs, clearly, that was a big one. Also, with the maintenance going forward, we wanted, realizing that something we're going to need is someone who's responsive and also able to help us out with the little things here and there without it being super costly for the town and the chamber. And then the familiar CMS, I write that here, as I stated, the two firms who really recommended it as a growth opportunity for us. They recommended we move on from Drupal, which is the CMS that we are currently on. We've been running on our current website for 7 years, which is a positive story. And with the changing internet, as quickly as things are, pivoting, and we need to be a little bit more agile. And for us, having a CMS that could be really mostly managed in-house by our coordinators and our admin here in Woodstock was huge. And then location of web agency, I put that in there. We didn't necessarily set out to do a local web agency, but having received 2 proposals from firms in Burlington, that was exciting to us and became one of the bigger factors. So we received 6 proposals. You can see the price range there from $15,000 to $37,000. I will say, as would the members of the marketing group, that, these weren't equal proposals and that, it was kind of just 15,000 equaled the same as 37,000. It was definitely a range of experience and what they were offering. And after 3 pretty in-depth interviews with our top firms, our recommendation is Bytes. And that's a great firm out of Burlington. They're super responsive and enthusiastic, and they will be building a WordPress site, including all the content migration, safely upholding our SEO. And the annual hosting fee is $253 a month. And that includes our hosting and a lot of service, ongoing support, and being part of a shared server that is shared with other people within their very small network. It's a very safe place to be, but we have plenty of space, plenty of disk space to accommodate our traffic because luckily woodstockvt.com gets a lot of traffic in comparison to other similar websites for towns. So that is what I have to share with you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
No.
No? Okay. Any comments from anybody? Roger.
But that's to get the voting. Oh, there's no thing up there. Does that matter?
No.
No, it's a,
Oh, okay.
we're updating things.
Oh, okay, great. Wow.
Forward.
I hate to be the guy who comes in and says, I think this might be moving too fast, because usually I'm the one who says, let's stop saying it might be moving too fast. I think this is a great proposal. I agree completely that we need to do this work. But I think there are strategic questions that need to be answered before we make this investment, including ultimately responsibility and ownership of the site, and who, whether or not the EDC is going to continue in its current form with a marketing committee. That's an open question to me. I mean, at least as far as I can tell. The relationship with the chamber is an open question. And I think we need to, from what I can see, this proposal gives us the technical capability to become much more nimble and agile and able to change our strategies, especially in a very uncertain market. I wouldn't expect to see any Canadian tourists here anytime soon. So I think that those strategic questions and those kind of ownership process questions need to be addressed before this investment is made. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Cambry Woodstock. I'm on the chamber board and I'm also a realtor in town and a former lister, if that matters, but I just wanted to actually reiterate what Roger just said, because we just met with the select board and Eric earlier today, and we're not all on the same page yet. We had some new information presented to us about our memorandum of understanding and all of that going forward with the chamber and the EDC of the town. I apologize, the town. So I just think that we need time for our board to look it over and decide, because it is a big change as far as I'm concerned. And it was a surprise, to tell you the truth. So I just think it would be fair if we had time to reevaluate and get together again before anything happens. But, you know, that's all.
Thank you.
I just want to make one clarification. The chamber didn't move the whole select board. It was 2 representatives of the select board today, so it was not the whole.
Right. Correct.
No, there were 3.
No.
There's 2.
Well, Lauren, me, and Ken.
No, I was select board on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't want them to get in trouble with the open meeting law.
Yeah, sorry.
Greta, is there a time frame on our current web company that would have to renew?
No, so what we have right now is more of a service relationship with Origin out of Vancouver. When we need something, we are billed hourly, and so that there's no, rush on that end. I would say that the what might be time sensitive is just the proposal is a 90-day proposal, which was received in January, and so potentially the price could change. I doubt that would be significant. And the firm did say if we were able to sign the contract by late March, then they would be able to begin in May. So, speaking of moving slowly, it is definitely a slow process. And I do think that once there are so many moving parts, obviously, and it would be a lot of steps, and there are definitely phases ahead of what comes after the contract being signed. So it's sorry to be vague, but yeah, that's kind of the only time sensitive thing.
Beth has her hand up as well online.
Go ahead, Beth.
Hi there, Beth Finlayson from the Chamber. And I think that I agree with Tambray. We were rather surprised this afternoon at our meeting with Laura and Eric and Ray. And as a member of the marketing committee and someone that's worked with 4 different websites since we have owned WoodstockVT.com since the early 2000s. I think it would behoove the select board to wait until the chamber has had a chance to meet and digest where we are with the website. Thank you.
I guess I'll just make a clarification here, which is that the chamber and the marketing committee and people on the chamber who serve on the marketing committee, this proposal in front of us for Bites is not new. In fact, the people on that committee have been working on it for almost a year. Is that right, Greta?
Yes, the request for proposal, we began working on late last summer.
Yeah, so that's not new information. I think what Beth and Tambry are referring to is the member of understanding that about the shared ownership of the Woodstock VT website. And so I just want to make sure that we're clear for the public and the people in the public record that what we have in front of us isn't new information in terms of the proposal.
I think my concern is I'm hearing that there was talk of the ownership that at least I don't know anything about, and Greg probably doesn't either.
The MOUs.
Right, but I didn't know that was
It was,
having,
yeah.
being discussed or what was said to the chamber, so it's a little awkward to be voting on that. in my opinion.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I can't raise my hand. I don't know why. It's Kim Smith.
There's somebody in front of you, Kim. Hold on.
Thank you. I can't figure out.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Belton. I just want to say that I applaud the effort to improve the quality of the website. It's so vital as a source of information for all of us here in town, but also I remember looking to determine where to live, and the website and the photos on it to give me an understanding of the town was really vital. So I really encourage you, and I'm just very pleased to know that at some point the website will be improved. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kim.
Oh, thank you so much. I agree that we need to do something about the website. As a chamber board member today, we were presented with a change of the MOU. And I think we need some time to digest it. And so I would encourage the board to perhaps just table it for now, and we'll get back to you.
Any other comments? Well, this is going to be Greta, I have a question. Can this work be done without the website to be started?
Sorry, I guess I don't understand the question. Are you curious about the development of the new website? Could that be started before the contract is signed? Is that the question?
That, but do you need a URL to do it, or can you do it without the URL? Is it URL?
Yeah, you're asking the right.
That's correct. That is a question I don't know. I would assume so. I would assume that the firm would be able to begin in the design phase and talk about what, the landing pages are going to look like without a URL or, using a kind of a sub-in URL. But that would be a good question for Abby at Bytes, which I'd be happy to send along.
Yeah, there's no question about that. They could use they could abc.com. I mean, it doesn't matter.
In fact, sorry, John Spector, Woodstock, in fact, they will not use, even if they had the URL, they would not use it until it's ready to go live.
Right.
They wouldn't build it on that URL, they'd build it on something else, even if they had it.
So this looks like it's a conditional vote. Is there a motion to make a conditional vote on
Condition
Bytes?
on what?
On working something out with the chamber or getting our own URL?
I just think we should table it till April. I mean, I don't know what was presented to the chamber today. So, I think everybody has to be brought up to speed.
Right, we did send those MOUs out though.
Correct, but I don't know what you presented to the chamber. I've seen the historic MOUs, but not what was presented to the chamber for going forward.
All right. I guess we'll table it till the next meeting.
Do we need to vote that?
I'll just do it to be safe.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would move that we table the conditional vote on the Bytes contract until our April meeting.
There a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Right?
Aye. Okay, appointment of town assessors.
Yeah, so this is based on, the vote at town meeting, where the residents decided to do away with elected listers and instead appoint assessors. State statute gives you two options. One is to wait 45 days after the vote, and then the listed position automatically goes away. The other is that the, select board appointing, assessors, and at that point, the listers would cease to exist and, appointed, excuse me, the appointed assessors would then take their place. As we said, kind of throughout the process, the original plan was to take the listers we have now, both Tim and Kathy, and then just make them the appointed assessors. So if that's still the select board's prerogative, we can have that vote right now. Both of them have agreed to come on as town employees, 20 hours a week, as they're working before.
Is there a motion to appoint Kathy Avellino and Tim McCarthy as assessors?
I move we appoint Kathy Avellino and Tim McCarthy as assessors.
Who's they're town assessors.
Town
Town
assessors.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Small treatment capacity and resiliency program 2025 loan.
So what was in the packets, and what you'll, hopefully approve now is the resolution certificates, for this $800,000 loan. That will go towards repairing, the pipe on Elm Street. This is a zero interest loan through the bond bank, so it's gonna cost no interest over the life of the grant. It's something we talked about when we're going through, the potential purchase of the aqueduct system, is that when the town owns it or will own it, we're eligible for these better benefits that private company does not have. So this will save a lot of money over the years that I've paying interest. So this would be just for the board to approve the resolution certificate, as presented, and then get signatures on that, and then after the meeting, we sign everything else as well. So it's on page 1, 2, 3, the first 3 pages in the booklet. And I have the original copy in front of me as well.
Does that have the typo?
Okay, is there a motion to approve the resolution and certificate?
Now, there's a typo in the first paragraph, the last line, but with that corrected, I would approve. I would move we approve the resolution and certificate.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And Laura, can you come in sometime tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next up is the purchase of a new truck for the highway department.
Sure. We moved that resolution, but I don't think we moved the loan agreement, did we? Or was that all in one?
That's a good catch. Yeah, so you want to approve the loan as well?
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank
And
you.
my only question on the loan agreement is that there's a whole section of representation and warranties by us as the select board, but it's information we really don't know. And I just want you to kind of say on the record that you reviewed that and are comfortable with those representations and warranties.
I reviewed it and I had an attorney review it as well, that worked with us on this, and they're both, I agree and they agree that we're, okay.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the loan?
I move we approve the loan agreement with the Small System Capacity and Resiliency Program.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Purchase a new truck.
Yeah, so, I know most people weren't privy to the negotiations with the aqueduct. I guess to back up, under discussions, I have a WAC update. As we're talking about, we might as well give the update now.
Okay.
So about a week and a half ago, the select board and the Woodstock Capital Company agreed to the final draft of the APA. The select board voted on it about 10 days ago and signed it. That is now in front of the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, which is the organization in the state that manages private utility companies. They have accepted it. They now have comment open until April 14th. So anyone can make a comment that if they're against the Woodstock, town Woodstock acquiring the water system, or any other comments will be open till then. After the comment section is when they'll agree ideally to allow the town to purchase the company, which would be the last kind of big hurdle for us. So that should be happening kind of the next few weeks. So that's kind of where we're at with that. That's where we're going moving forward with the loan and the bonds a few weeks ago. So something that we did not include in the APA was to take over the truck that the Woodstock Capital Company uses each day. The reason behind that was there was still about $30,000 left on the truck. So we decided to not include that in the deal. And instead, what we have in front of us, based on Chris Barr, who's the Public Works Director, is an option to buy a 2024 Ford F-250, which is a 3/4 ton vehicle. And what we'll do is we'll bring that in and then kind of shift vehicles down to get a vehicle to the water crew. The reason for this purchase is this type of truck could add a plow in front of it, so we can get an extra plow and so in addition, so we have another vehicle to use if need be. The costs of the F-250 would be about $12,400 a year. If we would go to an F-150, which is what they currently has, it will be about $11,300 a year. So for about $1,000 more per year, we'll have the ability to have more plow vehicles out there. So that's a recommendation in front of the board. I'm happy to answer more questions if you want. Chris Barr cannot be here today, so I'm kind of filling in, but I know he filled in Greg as well. So Greg has any comments?
I think it's a good idea because the fact that we can have another plow rate, the 150 they're giving to the water department would work good for that water department. So I think it makes sense.
Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the new truck for the highway department?
I'll make a motion that we approve to buy the new 250.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, Woodstock, use of the Montver mini trailer.
I'm Inspector Woodstock and Bookstock. I think I can save you trouble. We thought that you owned one of the two electric panels on the green. It turns out that the village owns them.
Huh.
Secondly, we thought we had to connect to that panel as opposed to the other panel, which is owned by the chamber. We found out today that we cannot. We have to connect to the chamber panel. So I think we definitely don't need your approval. And I'm not sure we need anyone's approval other than the chamber, and they've already agreed to it. And this will be a permanent installation of a high voltage plug so that the Montver Mini in this case, but then others in the future can get power they need to kind of power that kind of, trailer for a food truck or a food trailer or some kind of something like that. So it'll be available to everybody, and Bookstock is going to pay for the installation.
All right, thank you. Okay, the housing update, Trina.
So with that first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I can address that we put that on the agenda out of the request of some South Woodstock residents who aren't here. So I think we can move along.
Now, Trina.
Hello, everyone. So tonight I have 4 applicants that have applied to our housing programs that I'd like to present to you. And I'm here to ask for the select board's approval for the funding of these grants. In your packet, you should have, the first one is for Horst Dressler. I'm not sure what page it is because I don't have your packet. But he is from, he began the process through Lisa Locals, which has now been renamed Rent to Locals. And just for the sake of sharing, all of the information online has been updated, all of our legal contracts, applications, etc. And I'm here tonight to request $6,000 for this grant paid to Horst Dressler for housing one qualified tenant who is a local worker, meets the needs of our local worker requirements. And there's also a second person that lives in the home but works out of the area, so 2 adults. But asking for 6,000 grant for our Horst based off his application. He meets all the eligibility requirements, the properties in Woodstock, etc. I'm not sure how, this is the first time presenting this type of request to the select board. So I'd like to know if the information I'm providing on this one-page document is enough to make this decision, or if there's other information you would like to see as we move forward. So for now, the first one is for Horst, and I'm requesting approval of a $6,000 housing grant to him for housing one qualified worker and one non-qualified worker, but in total 2 adults.
Tends to represent all of them, and then we can discuss.
Yes, yeah, we'll present all of them and then we'll.
Okay. The next one is for Thomas Dickey. He's over on 4 Highland Avenue. And he's renting out a private room to a local worker. There's actually just one person there because they're renting a room, which we do have a room rental similar to home share, but it's under the rent to local program. The incentive for that is a $4,800 payment. And all of these are made for during, all of these are 2 payments, one at the beginning and one at the end of the lease. Just trying to share some process information with you as I go through these. It's for a 1-year lease. Thomas does meet all of the eligibility requirements of the program. And in this case, he's charging the applicant $500 a month. He could be asking for $800. So all of these, again, are within our requirements as far as the cap on the rental amount. And it's for a 1-year lease. The third one is for Julian Underwood. He has a home at 90 Gulf Avenue. He has also applied to the Lease to Locals rental program. And I'm just going to make a comment here that obviously it did help when we increased the incentive because we've got 3 new applicants here for it. We remember we doubled the incentive, I believe, last fall for these housing programs. Again, this is for a 1-year lease. He actually has 3 adults living in the home and 2 of them that are local workers. That are living there under an arrangement of rent and caretaker services. But as you can see from the document, it's much less than the $2,800 a month that we would require for a 3-bedroom home. So in this case, one difference between this and the others is that there are 2 qualified tenants, 2 local workers involved in this property. So the grant would be $12,000. Paid in 2 payments because their grants are paid out per qualified worker. Again, the goal being that we wanted to get local workers into these homes. Any questions on that before I move to the last one? And the last one is an application from the Woodstock Inn via Benjamin Pauley, and this is for the ADU program. So the ADU program will pay an incentive grant of $10,000 for those that are renovating or building new ADUs. It's for a 3-year rental term to a local worker. It's located at 6 Court Street. Basically, he's going to be renovating the space in this dwelling. It's been used for storage for quite a long time. The property's on municipal water or municipal sewer, and they have sufficient water capacity. Woodstock Resort Corp owns the dwelling, and this, as I mentioned, the space has been used for storage. In order to make this a livable unit, they need to clear out the storage, which is supposed to begin in April, and add a kitchen, a bathroom, and a heat source to make it livable. They do have cash on hand, and I've also applied to the VHIP 10-year forgivable loan option, which should be up to 50,000 to help with the renovations as well. So one of the exceptions I wanted to note here on this is that the ADU program and all of the housing programs are based on a 1-year tenant lease. And we understand that when, in a situation like this, it's a little different because it's employer housing. And while the employers always seek to have long-term employees in long-term housing, sometimes that's not always the case. So employer housing is a little different in that respect, so that they can operate as efficiently as they can with the properties that they own for employer housing. We're requesting that there be an exception or notation made on this for approval, succumbing that if the employee loses their employment or there's a change, we're going to follow what Woodstock Inn does, which is give the tenant 30 days to exit the unit, which kind of makes it a month to month. But noting, of course, that the long-term goal is that they're going to be there forever and working happy ever after. So in this case, it would be $10,000 from the housing grant funds. And the maximum rent he can charge is $1,500 a month. I'm not sure what that is yet. He hadn't established that. But they will be an employee of the Woodstock Inn who will be living there. And it will be for a 3-year term, even though it may not be for a 1-year lease, if that makes sense. Okay, that's all I got. Do you have any questions on any of these?
I do, Trina. I was just curious, this is our first ADU applicant in a bit, and I don't know if you remember when the last ADU applicant was, but this feels like our first applicant in a while. And is that just because I guess this applicant already has access to water and sewer, so that's what makes that easier.
Right. I don't know, maybe it's because I've advertised again in listserv or done some things, or maybe it's just the fact that they have the funds now, want to move forward with this project.
Yeah.
I do think that overall, this is not in regards to this applicant at all, but in general, there are some changes that I would recommend to the ADU program and make it more of a housing unit program.
Okay.
I've gotten inquiries from folks that, hey, I've got some land and I want to build a house on it. Do you have anything that can help me? And the answer is no, because it's not an ADU, it's a house.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, if I had the approval, or if you want me to present something maybe in one of the future meetings regarding it, I would recommend making that more generic in nature, that it would be a housing unit program grant, not limited to just an ADU.
Okay.
And the other thing that I would recommend is increasing the incentive. The incentive has been at $10,000 since we initiated these programs in 2022. That too could be the reason why we've had fewer applicants in building or renovating, because the cost of doing those projects has not gone down.
Right.
In fact, they're probably going to be more with the tariffs and everything else that are going on right now.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, we kind of alluded to this in some of our previous requests from when it was through the EDC, but basically look at increasing that incentive. The gap on building has been identified at 50,000. I don't know if we want to go that high or if it would be a recommendation of at least doubling what we have here, similar to what we did with the rental program, and see what we can get from there to assist until we have a bigger plan in play. More strategic plan.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that feedback. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. Anybody else?
Can you just address the funding of this? Is this money that was already in your budget, or is this money coming from this fiscal year's 1%?
Correct. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay.
Yes, it is the 1% funds that go to the EDC. Those funds were put away or allocated to EDC. What would that have been? 24 to 25 fiscal year. Those funds, and I believe last time we were here, we were talking, and the number was around $200,000. I thought possibly John was going to send you those financials, so you'd have a number. If he didn't, then I'm happy to use my own. But there's approximately 200,000 that has been allocated by the select board over the last few years to put towards housing with the EDC. So there's a stockpile of funds for EDC already. We're not requesting new funds.
My second is more of a comment than a question, because I understand these meet the guidelines that you
Yeah.
are present following. I think with these lease to locals, I would love to see it go to a 2-year lease. $12,000 seems an awful lot to give to somebody who, my calculations are with the caretaker allowance, they're really only deducted for $4,800 for the year from the rent. And, you know, who knows that next year they're not moving that family out and making it into a short-term rental. So that's my concern, is it's a lot of money to give to one property owner without more than a year commitment.
I understand that point. And I think that one of the reason why that one is different is because there are 2 qualified tenants workers living there. So that's why it's a larger amount. If they had a child, it would be $18,000. So I understand your point, and I'm happy to have a discussion with Julian Underwood to increase this to a 2-year lease for this existing application. And if he approves that, move forward. If he doesn't, come back. I mean, I'm open to your feedback or what you'd like to do here for the present case and talk about the future cases.
I think these meet your guidelines, so I'm not sure that we have. I mean, I guess I'm disagreeing with the guidelines more than the present, more than the applications.
I got one question for you on the Woodstock Inn. It just says required rental maximum is $1,500. What are they gonna be charging for rent?
I had mentioned that I don't have that information from Ben. He doesn't happen to be in the room. He was going to try to join the meeting. No, I can ask him. It's going to be less than, it's got to be 1,500 or less. That's our rule. But I can find that out and let you know, but he can't join the program without agreeing to those terms.
Budget?
So.
Hold
I
on.
get-
I have a comment here.
This is really probably not a comment that you can do anything about, but it gives me some pause, even though it may fall well within the guidelines, that we are subsidizing a business that last I looked was getting an estimated, at least in the tens of millions of dollars a year of revenue to help them with the cost of doing business. I realize that there's a person in that house or in that dwelling, but it just gives pause that the town of Woodstock is subsidizing the inn, which is an extremely successful and as far as I can tell, highly profitable business. Thank you.
Roger, I had that same thought, and then it did occur to me that they're probably the biggest generator of that 1% tax as well, which made me feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice and all, but it's still a highly profitable business that we are subsidizing. And again, it falls within the guidelines, it falls within the guidelines. You probably can't do anything about it. It's just.
Well, Roger, thank you for that comment. I will say to everyone in the room that we have considered employer housing, and in the past, we have not had anyone who is an employer doing these housing projects. It's all been individuals. And the reason why we didn't get into employer housing was because of the situation that puts the tenant in, where they're reliant and dependent on their employer, both for their job and their housing. It puts them in a precarious situation. So that's why I've marked this one as an exception. So you have the ability, it does not follow the current rules, which is a 1-year lease. You have the ability now to approve it or not approve it. But I agree with all points you've made.
All right, so is there a motion to approve all, some, none?
I'll make a motion to approve all of the applications our housing advisor has presented for the housing incentives.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The
Who
reluctant.
seconded? Susan did?
Yes.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Laura.
Thank
And
you.
I'll get back to you, in one of the upcoming meetings. I'll present something about some of the options talked about that may help engage AD builders and housing development a little bit more than it is now.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thanks so much.
hopefully much more, but yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
you.
so much.
Economic
If I could
development,
interrupt, I don't know if you
Oh, we
want to
skipped.
move to maybe retail marijuana, there are a few people in, online and in person tonight. Have this conversation if you want, so have to wait till the very end. I just
Okay.
suggest,
yeah,
Okay. I'll, since this was my request to put on the agenda, I'll address it. We presently have 3 retail cannabis stores in the town of Woodstock. I think that we need to discuss whether 3 is sufficient. The legislature has a procedure where we had a townwide vote to opt into the retail cannabis market. And we can also opt out, which does not affect the current people. The 3 that have licenses, or if any more get a license before we do this, it does not affect them at all. It just means that we would not have any more. And I guess if one of them went out of business, they wouldn't be replaced. But I feel that there's a saturation point for a small town, and feel that 3 is probably at saturation. Right now, the state has a moratorium where they're not issuing any licenses, so there's no urgency to this, but I wanted to have the discussion. It would have to go to an Australian ballot for the whole town if we wanted to opt out. And I don't want us to go to the expense of having a special Australian ballot, but we may have some coming up for bonds or things like that, and I would like to personally have a discussion about whether this should be on that ballot.
I personally, I maybe agree that 3 is too many, but I also believe in free enterprise, and we don't limit the amount of clothing stores or hard goods stores or any other stores in town. And I just think this sets a bad precedent that somebody's gonna say, well, I want to get rid of potential competition, and I'd like you to change the rules. I think we wait to see what the state says before we go through the expense of having an Australian ballot in the vote.
Well, and my point is, we don't do it as a special measure. I think the difference with this is that neighboring towns don't have this. So, you know, it was something that we specifically opted into. We don't opt into having clothing stores and restaurants. So, anyway,
Where would this be located? Or,
no, there's
No,
no
no,
more. We
there's
have
no-
3.
We have 3.
And so what I'm saying is that we just say 3 is enough.
Where's the third one?
There's one at the Bridgewater, the Woodstock portion of the Bridgewater Mill Mall.
The line, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I would suggest we wait and see what the state guidelines are before we put on the ballot. Because the state may solve.
Yeah,
this
we don't
for
have
us.
a ballot coming up.
No, I know, but the state may solve this for us.
Maybe.
I'd
But
be
they
shocked.
are
I'd be
really
shocked.
good at solving our problems, right?
Any other comments? Any other select board comments?
Yeah, I guess I'll weigh in on this. As a part of the moratorium, the Cannabis Control Board has proposed legislation. And they added a section on geographic distribution because, like us, they're also concerned about the proliferation of retail cannabis establishments. And the link is on their website, but if anyone cares to read, they basically would restrict the permits to based on population, and due to our population size, we wouldn't be able as I'm reading this, to issue any more permits regardless, because we would fall under a municipality with fewer than 4,000 inhabitants. So I think I'm keen to see what the Cannabis Control Board does. Like Ray, I think that I understand that there's like concern for proliferation, but I don't, I feel like this is like very anti-competitive of us, and I'd rather spend the energy attracting businesses we want to see instead of restricting them, the ones that we don't, especially when they're already limited to outside the village.
I think we wait and see what the state has to say myself.
Any
I just want to make a short point that.
Jeffrey, could you just say your name?
Jeffrey Kahn, Woodstock. The village of Woodstock voted opt out. So to your point of competition, non-competition, this is a little different than other stores and in terms of limiting things, because the village had the right to say, no, there will be none. Just want to throw that out there. And if there was a merger, and suddenly the guarantee was there was more allowed, the village, one would open inside the village, but
Thank you. Any other comments? Do we need to vote on this or?
No, it was just discussion.
Okay, all right,
But we needed to go back and vote on the flower pots. Right?
yeah,
And I forget what Eric added.
Yeah, with Stephanie.
Stephanie,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
you want to do that now?
yeah, let's get that done.
Stephanie, hold on. So as we know, we've, for a while, contracted out with, Mike Teller for plan and zoning purposes, and we made him the administrative officer for a while to sign off on permits, with the office being fully staffed. Mike's gonna be leaving us, I think, end of this week. So we need someone to be able to review and sign permits. Stephanie, because she has nothing else going on, has stepped up to, take on that role. And I kid, it's like one knows how much work Stephanie has done, but who may not. Stephanie has been, doing a lot of work the last few months, and excellent work, helping everyone out. So, just another thing on her list. But so the vote tonight would make her the zoning administrative officer, for the time going forward.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved?
The second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Then next is
You want to do
the
the flowers, or do
might as well,
you want to do the economic development director position?
well, if we're voting, might as well get that out of the way, I guess. Right? Okay. So, I received an email today, from Beth and from the high school that they need to know by Wednesday of this week whether or not to order soil for the baskets. My understanding is they've already started the plants. And, I think where things have been moving very quickly, that, this one time we, approved the purchase of the soil, have the invoice come directly to the town. And that this is the last, the chamber is gonna have to start figuring out how to come up with lights and flower baskets for next year. And
Well, we're
like,
gonna discuss that in May.
we can discuss that in May, but as of right now, I think we need to, because we need to get, it's not fair to the high school, it's already started the plans to just say, we're out. So I would like a motion.
So I just want to make clear that, beyond approving tent the baskets, you're also locking the select board into paying someone to water the baskets for the whole
Correct.
season. So just want to put the board aware of that as well, that this will be.
We have time for that, fortunately. Okay, so is there a motion to,
Beth has her hand up. I don't know if you want
go ahead, Beth.
My question, I think, is a follow-up or similar to Eric's, that, we had never approved for the school to plant them, and that had been my outreach. The outreach from the school had been that email. I am concerned about you know, if we're gonna plant these beautiful things, we need someone to take care of them. And yes, we can postpone it, but it's like kicking the can down the road. The flower baskets are really about a $9,000 proposition. The lights are much cheaper. They're $3,000 cut and dried. But the flower baskets are different.
Right, but right now we're just approving the purchase of the soil, because it's something that got, dumped on us at the last minute. And we will discuss watering at the next meeting in April.
Ray, I just have a question. Is this request from the chamber or is this from the businesses downtown?
This is combination of both. I've had business owners call up and yell at me about not having the baskets. And I think because this is going as quickly as it has been, that we, at least approve the baskets for this year, and moving forward, we'll come up with a different plan.
Yeah, no, I support I'm fine to fund them. I want to be clear because last year we granted this request with understanding that the chamber had notice in the summer that they were going to fund them fully, the flower baskets and the lights. And so I guess I'd want to know like what's changed and, yeah.
I don't think anything's changed except for the chamber has no money.
Okay.
How much topsoil are we?
You're probably talking, they buy it by the bale. So I can't imagine it's more than 10 or 15 bales. It's short money. For bale of
So is that
topsoil.
all we're doing is the topsoil and they're funding everything after, or?
That's
We gotta
what April's
discuss that in
discussion,
April.
yeah.
Okay.
So is there a motion to approve the purchase of the bales of soil?
I'll move we buy the soil for the flower pots.
Sorry to interrupt one, sorry, so, Steve Alder, are you using funds from the general fund, or are you gonna use one funds from the 1% for this? I think, so if it's gonna be outside the general fund, just try and make that motion as
I
well.
think it has to be from the general fund. I don't think it's infrastructure.
Yeah.
But other ones, like economic development.
Right.
I think if we expect this expense going forward to be a town expense, which it sounds like it does, and we expect to put this probably in the budget going forward, depending on the financial security of the chamber, then I would move that this come out of the general fund. And that way we can budget for it.
And this, just to be clear, this goes along with my idea that we need to sit down with the budget. I was suggesting in May and decide what items like this and
Yep.
others goals and make it clear what we're going to fund in the future and not assume we're building any of this into the budget going forward.
I agree. But right now,
Right now, no.
we're
I would
between
say
a rock
we
and a
buy
hard
the
place,
soil for the flower pots from the general fund
and have it billed to the town.
and have it billed to the town.
Is there a second?
So did you say soil and plant pots?
No,
No,
soil
just
and.
For the
soil.
pots.
And
Or,
for the
Yeah.
pot.
I will second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Hi.
thank you. Okay. No.
Question? Can I ask a question? So. I'm a little confounded by the concept of let's buy the soil and then not have the funds to water them.
That's not what we did. We're gonna discuss how we're gonna water them in April,
How you're gonna water.
how it's gonna be completed, whether it's a
So it might be-
contractor, maybe it's we give every store owner a hose and say, water them, I don't know. There's,
Sprinkle a lot of rain.
It may,
yeah,
it may
sprinkle
be,
rain, you
it
know,
may be cheaper to have our crew do it.
the April, whatever,
The third Tuesday of
third
April.
Tuesday in April.
Third Tuesday. Okay. All right, I have some comments about this, and I'll hold them for that meeting, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Discussion on economic development.
thank you. Okay, discussion on economic development director position.
Laura, I'll share the please view the screen in a second. Okay, should be all set.
All right, sorry. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna try to. Oh, now I can't see what you can see. Can you see my slides? Because I can't see them.
Your desktop. No,
Now,
yeah,
now we
that's
got your desktop.
yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna fly blind here.
No, we can't see
No, we
anything.
can't see your screen.
Laura, we're seeing your
We're seeing your
desktop,
screen, but
like
not
your
the
email,
slide.
not
Oh.
your.
Okay, sorry, hold on.
We got nothing.
Sorry, guys.
Or two, if you're. Nice to have one.
Yeah,
You need a 12-year-old on the board.
we have one.
Ugh.
Can you do it from your computer?
I'm not on Zoom on that.
Oh,
All right, I think I've got it. Let's try this again. Okay.
Okay, you're good.
Okay. Economic development. All right, so I put together some slides for us to talk about broadly economic development. We've been, I think, talking or touching or tiptoeing a conversation around since we started our objectives and goals conversation last year, how we want to handle economic development in Woodstock. And so I put together some slides that are just going to serve as a jumping off point for this discussion. And then we can jam and share ideas. Hopefully, here we go. Okay, so as a lot of you know, we have an economic development and community fund that is funded by the meals, rooms, and alcohol tax that was approved some years ago by Woodstock voters. For the past several years, the Economic Development Commission has overseen and made recommendation on how to allocate these funds, including the annual community grant program. The community grants program, usually, if you're familiar, the EDC accepts applications kind of at the end of the year and goes through a selection process in the spring for those funds. That has been paused while the board decides on how to align the fund with our objectives and goals that both the joint boards voted on last year. In terms of the money in that fund, the select board allocated $75,000 a year for debt service for water infrastructure, which we voted on in 2024 in alignment with our goal to bring more housing and development to Woodstock. Trina, our housing advisor, we just voted to extend her contract through August 2025. We also have a marketing coordinator whose contract expires at the end of April. And we're currently in the process of restructuring these contracts to bring these positions more or less in-house. So Trina, as you saw at the beginning of the meeting, now is reporting and asking for funds directly from the select board. We also currently have incentives for housing programs as well as storefront vacancies, which is a program that was created some years ago. So where we could go, some other towns in Vermont have full-time economic development departments or directors, which is a role that is tasked with, among other things, growing the grand list through adding housing and development and growing business revenues. Some examples of those are Randolph, Dover, and Waterbury. Some common themes in those job descriptions or in those departments are recruiting new businesses, supporting current businesses, leading revitalization efforts, identifying and securing grant funding opportunities, either for the municipality or for other businesses, helping navigate permit processes, especially when you have zoning bylaws to contend with, which is something that the Planning Commission is working on the other side right now. But as anybody who's spent in our planning and zoning office knows, it's really kind of difficult to navigate our bylaws and understand where you can build, what you can build, and how you can build it. And some other things that economic development directors do is coordinate marketing, promotions, and events. So as a jumping off point, I was thinking if this is something that we are interested in doing and leveraging the fund for this position in this way, we could fund this position from the fund. We could build in incentive compensation or not, depending on how we wanted to structure it. Something we also could do, something we've talked a lot about, is the East End and focusing a lot of our efforts there because it happens to be not just the gateway to our community if you're coming from the east, but also because there's opportunity there once we have water to hopefully see some denser housing as well as other commercial spaces, either that have been there in the past or new commercial spaces. This position could also absorb what we're doing right now through the housing advisor if we wanted to. We could restructure the housing incentives and the storefront incentives to an ad hoc basis instead of allocating a dollar amount. So like Trina brought up in the beginning of the meeting, I think there's lots of different tweaks we can make to the incentive program, but figuring out how to make the money work for us the most and whether or not committing it in large chunks is worthwhile or not is something to consider. This role could report to the municipal manager on a daily basis and be working out of town hall. I thought about this because I thought it aligned with the goals and objectives that we set last year, specifically around housing and development. And I personally feel that having a full-time role for this issue is imperative because I do think they require full-time attention, and it's not something that right now we have 2 land use coordinators, we have a chief of staff, we have Eric, obviously, we have a finance department, and I think a lot of people and we have Trina, our housing advisor, a lot of people are trying to whittle away at these processes and projects, but it would be great to have someone whose full-time job is just devoted to this. And I also think if we funded it through the fund, we could allow it to be an experimental role if we wanted it to, so we could try it for a year or 2 years and see if it's something that fits in with our plan, or not, or maybe we go a different direction. So that's it. This is a separate agenda item, but I kind of meant to have them obviously as a conversation one, because I think they're the same conversation. I think everybody's been asking and talking about what is going to happen to the current EDC. And so I guess I just wanted to note here that the EDC has provided incredible support to the community for many years. I know my life has been positively impacted by their work. Do they still serve an advisory purpose, though, if they're not recommending grants, especially the community grant program? I think that's an open question. I think if we were to go forward with a role like this, the new role would require access to a lot of historical knowledge of Woodstock, and also be able, hopefully, to leverage the support of willing volunteers if people wanted to volunteer to be a support for this role. So these are all kind of like open-ended questions for us to consider. And I also made a sample timeline if we wanted to move forward, creating a job description, posting it, having deadline, having rolling interviews after mid-May, and having a start date sometime in the summer before foliage. Again, this is all up for grabs. This is just a starting point for us to have a conversation. And then I was gonna take notes on everyone's ideas, but I don't think I have the technological capability to Zoom and share my screen and do that at the same time. So I guess I will open the floor up to the rest of the board for your thoughts and considerations, and I'm happy to go back on a certain slide if you want to, but I'm also happy to document your ideas.
No, I think I like the idea of having everything housed in much more cohesion with the town and in kind of one person rather than scattered around.
I agree. I think the timeline might be a little
aggressive.
For lack of a better word, but yeah,
Ambitious.
ambitious.
Yes, ambitious.
But I think it's something we can work on, and, I would suggest that the board members have any thoughts, that they just send them to Laura, and we can put something together real good, more concise.
Yeah, so I guess, and what I will say is I think that, you know, I know that this is just a conversation for us to have, and it doesn't need to be like, you know, capped tonight. But I think that also, something that's helpful is I think, and something that the board is working on and Eric is getting access to, is just like a full financial picture of what the fund looks like and what's committed and what's not. And I think figuring out how we fund this position will be easy once we have that information as well.
Roger, you have a comment?
Roger Logan, Woodstock. I think this is a really promising idea to look into. I want to echo what Laura said, that the EDC, all the members of the EDC over the years have done an incredible amount of work, and I think it's had some tremendous benefits. But I think it is a good time to think about starting to professionalize this function, especially as we head into what I assume are going to be some times of economic insecurity, and especially around the tourist business. I would like to suggest, and I know this is a work in progress, but I think it would make a lot of sense to consider bringing the marketing communications function underneath this. And so then, you know, that becomes more of a broad economic communications and communications tool for the town outside of kind of the traditional bricks and mortar. I'd also like to see it made explicit that part of economic development is things like bringing in work from home and bringing in other kinds of economic development that people don't normally think of because it's not bricks and mortar. But I think it's a great idea. I really think you should seriously consider this. I think it would be a step forward. Thank you. Thank you.
I would just suggest that maybe in the April meeting, we'll get the agenda ready for it. That the select board look with like goals, specific ideas they want this person to actually work on. So we have something that's measurable, because it's going to be a new position with kind of a wide scope that we probably want to make sure we know exactly what we want them to do and how we measure the success. Because it will be a challenging job.
Okay. Any other comment? John?
John Spector. Could you give some thought to how whether you'd like to just engage with the commission, even if it was just an email to them? I'm right now serving as the conduit, trying to read the tea leaves. I support this direction. I think it depends on who you hire, and it depends on what you mean by your priorities. And it depends on how you evolve those priorities over time. But assuming that, I think it's terrific that you've set the priorities, and that this fits perfectly with that. So my request is a process one. I'm getting tired of being the interlocutor, and I don't see any reason why you can't, for example, share this, send an email at a minimum, share this presentation with the members of the EDC with a cover note that says whatever you'd like it to say, just reflecting your thoughts. As a courtesy, I think it would be helpful to them.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Thanks, John.
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Conner, I'm a little concerned about trying to understand some of what you're saying you're dropping when you say community grants, no more community grants. Some of the things in the past have been granted through the EDC and approved by the select board are things that have worked really well with the business community as well as the residents and visitors in Woodstock. And so some of those things could still occur but it would just be run through a manager here, possibly. I mean, for instance, just to narrow it to what you're gonna bring up in April. We have this dirt that we're getting and nobody.
Potting soil.
Potting soil.
Know what you're talking about.
Really nice dirt that we're getting. And nobody to water it, and we're gonna discuss that later, and it's up in the air. Now, if nobody finds the funds for that, is it possible that that 1% money could still pay for that? You know, there are a couple of things that have been done, that being one of them, and I hear from so many people in my 47 years in the center of the village. I hear from a lot of people, both locals and visitors. So many people have enjoyed those flowers. And it's added to the whole ambiance, the feeling of Woodstock. So, and that adds to economic development. And that adds to how much the 1% brings in if more people come to Woodstock because of things like that. So to me, that little thing is really an important thing, even though it's a very small amount of money compared to a lot of the other things that are funded. So I'm just concerned that it seems like that may not be within the considerations. We're going forward, and I think that would be an area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ray, sorry, I have one thing.
Can I just, I think we're kind of slowly shifting into the conversation about the EDC's future role.
Okay.
Which is fine if the board wants to go there, but I think you probably just want to give a little more direction to myself and Laura on the position. So are you okay with Laura's timeline of your job description out in the next few weeks? Do you want to have more conversation about it?
I think I would agree that that's ambitious.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have to see the job description. We're not gonna be meeting
Right.
again, right?
And, you know, it gives a chance for board members to send their comments in for what they consider in the job description.
Okay. So John, I don't know if you're about the position or BDC.
No, it wasn't about.
Yeah, okay. So is the board okay if Laura and I sit down, or Stephanie and Laura the next day or two, kind of work through some things? And,
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's a slight confusion, or maybe it's sort of a terminology, Laura, that you may, depending on what you intended, you may want to shift it slightly. It doesn't change at all the substance of what you're saying. But the community, in the EDC's terminology, the community grant program is a subset of our programs. And this year, the community grant program was going to be about 8% of the total. There's another 92%. We were asked to stop the community grant program, but we were also asked to stop the other 92%. So we were asked to stop grants. So if what you meant was to cover all of the EDC, not just the small little piece that Jeff was just talking about, saying it wasn't important, then I would just take the word community out.
Sure.
If you, in our,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be confusing. I think I meant that right now we would be going through the EDC would be going through the community grants process. We're obviously allocating the housing grants right now, like we were at the beginning of the meeting.
It's clearly the whole thing. I just didn't. Okay. We use like community grants with a capital C and a G to mean a small subset. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the economic development director position?
No. I would ask if we maybe move the MPG resolution next, as Harry's online.
Okay.
The cards are available.
That's right. Anyway.
Yeah. Harry, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. So I am here tonight mainly to talk about the municipal planning grant application that is due this Friday, or excuse me, a week from today, Monday. I've been working with the Planning Commission, and I've also visited the village trustees to get their buy-in for the concept of the application that we're submitting. I believe in previous visits to the select board, I've called attention to this issue in the joint town and village plan, particularly as it relates to the future land use plan and the future land use map, where essentially at some point down the road, the zoning map from the town and village had been copied more or less into the future land use section of the town and village plan. And what that means is you are basically not able to change any of the boundaries of the zoning districts in the town or village, or change what the purposes of those districts are until that future land use map uh, changes. Basically, the long story short is that in Vermont, the town plan or the municipal plan is really supposed to paint with a broad brush. It's really just a general guideline that is used to develop bylaws. Otherwise, you end up in a situation like this where the future land use map is overly prescriptive, and then the planning commission, in developing zoning, is really kind of has their hands tied in terms of what sorts of changes they can make. And right now, that's kind of a big problem because Acts 47 and 181, which are the kind of state mandated upzoning laws that have come down in the last couple of years, mandate that areas that have access to sewer and water have to allow a certain amount of residential density and certain types of uses. And we're not able to come into full compliance. The town and village, I should say, are not able to come into full compliance of that until we are able to make changes to the boundaries on the zoning map. And we just can't do that without the future land use chapter and map being brought up to snuff in the town plan. So the main purpose of this municipal planning grant application is to have the planning fund work for a consultant to come in and help the planning commission take a good hard look at the future land use chapter and the future land use map and really bring those into alignment with best practices. Again, so they're kind of painting with broad strokes. The basic exercise of future land use planning is, where do we want to grow? Where do we want to stay the same? And where do we want to conserve land, basically? And if you're painting with those broad strokes, then you're free to make more detailed zoning changes in the future with that, within those constraints, basically. But so that's the main purpose of the application that I've prepared. It can also be the town plan update can also be used to set up some other goals that I know might be of interest, particularly adding enabling language to potentially unify the town and village bylaw, which I know that is something of interest within town hall from an administrative perspective, just to make permitting more streamlined and easier. Probably should add enabling language to the town and village plan to set up that and to authorize the planning commission to merge those two bylaws and suggest passing it. And it can also be used as a venue for capital planning for things like the water system that you're about to inherit. All of the many things that have to be done there, deferred maintenance, capital projects, and budgeting for those things, prioritizing those things. Municipal plans are a good venue to do that sort of planning. So that's kind of the gist of the application I've prepared. Tonight, I'll be asking the board to approve signing a resolution that the main purpose is essentially that you approve of the concept that I've just described to you, and also that the town is prepared to commit the match requirement if you were to get this grant, which is 10% of project cost. Which I have right now at just under $20,000 for the project costs. So that would bring your local match to just under $2,000. And I believe there's some sort of standard split you guys do between the town and village that Eric mentioned when I was at the trustees meeting. Not sure what that is, but because it is the joint town and village plan, I had to get their approval as well, and they will be signing on to the resolution once I send it around later this week. And that's about it. The application I said is due next Monday, and we'll know by May if we get the grant, and then work can commence as soon as the grant is executed. So, are there any questions about that?
We don't have that in our packet, right? So will we?
The resolution I was going to send around electronically, just because it needs a majority of the board to sign it, and it also needs a majority of the trustees and the planning commission chair. So lots of parties that I want to make sure are able to sign the document.
I guess conditioned on the content of the document. I can never, I guess, say I'm moving to sign something I haven't seen.
The resolution form itself is a boilerplate form on the state website that I can forward to you if you'd like to see the full text of the application itself. I mean, it's pretty extensive, but
We're being asked to sign the resolution. I don't know, it's a personal thing. I wanna know what I'm signing before I say I'm gonna sign it. But I'm happy to do a conditional,
Okay, I was gonna say, we'll just do
yes,
a conditional,
conditional motion based upon the content of the resolution. Is that,
that's fine. Is
okay?
there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Harry.
sure. Can I also, I don't know if this is out of order because I don't think it made it into the agenda. I did request last week to be added to talk about congressionally directed spending real quick. Eric, is that inappropriate to talk about if it's not in the agenda?
I was about to add it, but you can bring it up now and ask you about that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So just to briefly give an update on where this stands and talk about how we can move forward. So congressionally directed spending is also known as the federal earmark process. It's kind of a reform process from what used to be called the earmark process. Just to refresh your memory, I was here around this time last year to get the board's blessing to submit a request for the wastewater treatment plant. Consulted with Hoyle Tanner, who were the engineers working on the design for the wastewater treatment plant. We submitted a request to the federal government for $2.5 million to sort of increase the energy efficiency chops of the project. Basically, it included an advanced digital control system that would help the plant save some energy in operations, and also left the door open to putting solar or geothermal energy on site. That made it into a draft of the Appropriations Act. Unfortunately, I'm sure we're all aware of what the federal funding landscape is right now, or more to the point, we're all not very aware of what it's like because it's kind of unpredictable at the moment. But I just received word from Senator Welch's office last week that essentially no CDS requests made it into the continuing resolution that was passed for the rest of federal fiscal year 25. So for all intents and purposes, that request that we had submitted is dead. They are open for FY26 requests now. Again, politically speaking, it seems kind of hard to imagine that this Congress would fund many CDS requests. I am happy to either resubmit for the scope that we submitted for last year, or, you know, if you'd like, submit for a different project that's of interest to the town. I suggested to Eric that, you know, even though it's kind of an unlikely chance to begin with, it might be less politically risky if we were to submit for something like the water mains replacement project, or possibly the new water tank project that are identified as needs for, you know, the municipal water system, rather than asking for you know, these clean energy additions to the wastewater treatment plant. Less of a political target for the administration. Again, it's probably a slim odds that we would get this request anyway, but it's not a huge lift for me to you know, submit this request. It's a pretty streamlined system. Does the board have any thoughts on whether you would like to resubmit, or which project you would like to submit for, if so?
I think there's no harm in resubmitting if it's not a huge lift for you, as you said. And it makes sense that maybe a water tank would be more palatable than something that looks environmental.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Are you leaning more towards the tank or the water mains funding some of the water mains replacement work? Either or.
What are your thoughts, Eric?
think the water main would be great.
Yeah, I mean, we still get, we're only coming up to Brexit, so.
Yeah.
There's other mains that might
Yeah,
need help.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the water mains.
All right. Excellent. That's a very quick turnaround, so that is due by the end of this week. The actual application submission is not very difficult. If it does require a letter of support, which I'm not sure last year whether it was required or just recommended, is it okay if I reach out later this week and request Ray's signature on that letter?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Agenda calendar, it's me.
Yeah, because the conversation of the EDCs was John left.
I think the board can still have a conversation.
Right.
You know, it might be, so just a quick reserve fund guidelines.
Oh, that's right.
Sorry.
So what that is, at the last town meeting, it passed to create a reserve fund. So the select board just needs to kind of have some guidelines on how that will be managed. So Robert and I will put that in internally, and hopefully by, April, we'll have some of the rules looked at.
So for the agenda calendar, what I would like is that each month we outline what at least one of our items on the agenda will be. And I know, you know, we have the wastewater treatment plant coming up. We obviously have budgeting. There's been talk that we want to revisit short-term rental. So just trying to plan those items out throughout the year so that both all of us can be prepared, and we could also let the public know well in advance when we think we'll be discussing different topics. So if all of you would just shoot me an email with the ideas that you have of some of the things we should be addressing this year, that would be great. Then Eric and I can meet and try to put together a calendar.
Yeah, if I can just hop on that, I think a goal I have for this year, and I think the goal of the select board as well, is to have less special meetings. You know,
I approve of it. From your perspective, I think that is a very good idea.
And so we're gonna talk a little bit more about this later on, but if we have an idea of what the agenda is gonna be like each month, and so we're not caught by surprise by soil or the day of a meeting or something like that, we can kind of plan out better, so we can just have a guideline of what's gonna happen each month and hopefully avoid having to meet all the time. So.
Okay.
Great.
But I think, I mean, it'd be my recommendation for the board to kind of have a conversation about the EDC's role where hair is on the agenda. I just internally, what you all think should happen or what you want it to look like. I know they all left, but
Part of me thinks that the economic development person would also have a say in that, whether they want to. Maybe the EDC would be a great resource for them. And so I'm a little torn about us making the decision when we don't have that person in place.
okay.
Yeah, it's. I think I agree with Susan. If we're gonna have somebody in that role, we should let them decide if they want input from the committee or not, or committee members.
Yeah.
I just think that, you know, they need, we're moving as fast as we can, and I know that they're not happy about, they think we're moving slowly. They're just gonna have to get used to the fact that it's gonna take time. And, you know, they want to quit the commission, they can quit.
I think to John's point, it would be great to have them see what Laura prepared and invite their comment at this point. There's no, I think that, you know, they have done a great service for the town, and just kind of cutting them out of the process now isn't, I don't think, productive. But so at least getting their view on, if we go this route, what are the important goals you think, or something like that. since they've been doing the hard work all these years.
Yeah. Yeah, can do. I think there's a happy medium in here where we're not stringing them along, to John's point or to Ray's point, but we're making the opportunity available if they still want to be involved for this person. Like I said, I'm sure I think when I think about the EDC, there's probably hundreds of years of knowledge about Woodstock, and that can be a great resource. And I think it goes without saying they're not here now, but I think this town has been better in so many ways for their contributions, and I'm certainly grateful for that. And I try to take every opportunity to let them know that. I've been impacted by the childcare grants they've allowed me to work. So, and I know that that's been the case for many families. So I'm very grateful to them. So I'll make it my goal, if that's okay with the board, to send an email, or I'll send a draft cover letter to the rest of the board, that I would send to the commission, and then you guys can give me feedback on that. And then I'll send it with the presentation, asking for any feedback, and also kind of just level setting expectations in terms of their participation over the next few months.
Wait, there's still someone in the room?
Yeah, I know. I guess I'm just the one who,
No light?
I'm thinking about a beer later, but, I fully support the idea that you can't make a decision about this right now, especially if you're bringing on this person. I do think that as you move to a more professionalized development effort, keeping the whole of the EDC as it's currently constituted is not going to add enough value to make up for the amount of work it's going to be. But whether or not it's the EDC or a subset of the EDC or some other structure, I do think you need to make sure that there is a basis for community input into economic development besides people just coming to regular select board meetings. So, and I also agree with John, there are people that I know are displeased with what's happened. I think it was the right decision, but I know that there are people who are displeased, and I think it would be, especially to John's benefit, to reach out to them and essentially say, thank you for all you've done. We're looking at how we can make plans to go forward and make sure that the input of people in the community are taken into account. So, but again, I think you're going in the right direction, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Last but not least, executive session.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Roger.
I'll consider a motion in an executive session under 1 VSA 313 to discuss potential contracts in the negotiation or securing of real estate purchases or lease options.
I'll close the door.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You want to sign it?
Yeah, I wanna just have you guys sign the proclamation while we're, the meeting, so it's a record of it. Ready.
We have to talk about these.
Are we recording?
Yeah, you're recording still.
Okay, so it's signing the resolution certificate, loan, whatever it is, something.
That's for you, and then Ray, you can sign all the other paperwork. I assume you'll be in something tomorrow, Renee?
If I don't drink myself to death tonight.
Being recorded.
No, I don't. Yeah, I'll be in.
Okay, so I'll be sending the rest of the stuff tomorrow and we'll send it over.
And I think it, somewhere it said a majority, so I think if you don't get everybody, you're.
Yeah, I'll give Laura tomorrow just to
Okay.
confirm it, and then, I'm not sure if Carrie is. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna table the minutes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
What, do we, I think, I'll make a motion that we table the minutes to the next meeting. I had some corrections on them.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Move we adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned.
Motion's adjourned.
Motion's adjourned, the meeting is adjourned, everything's adjourned.